Caution, wait, please do not play with my mind, hey. I do not play with my lines, wait. I keep protection for mine, you will not touch what is mine. I do not play with my shine, caution, wait, please do not play with my mind, hey. I do not play with my line, wait. I keep protection for mine, you will not touch what is mine. I do not play with my shine, caution. Look at my face, pay me respect, please do not play with my line. If you want taste, what you gon' get? Shit that gon' bury your mind. All that's at stake, where is my check? Need every nickel and dime. You play with my race, put you in check, for stopping the vision to climb. They mad that these niggas done woke up and now all our visions to go. Where is the bag to get us so caught up? Yeah, that is the mission and goal. Staying up cold, some of y'all doing too much. Straight up be looking like hoes, never gon' grow. Can't count on you on cuz, most of y'all doing the most. Like this is a show, doing it for entertainment. Or you're doing it for clout. Or you're doing it to sit at the table with crackers with words in your mouth. I don't play with enslavement. These ain't the days of the South. These days we play differently. This is what black empowerment's about. Wait, I said there's no time for no friends. Either you with us or against us, don't switch it, cause one of us die in the end. Hey, I'm keeping my eye on the lens. Watching the ops despising the picture cause they wanna see the one end. Hey, caution, wait, these do not play with my mind. Hey, I do not play with my lines. Wait, I keep protection for mine, you will not touch what is mine. I do not play with my shine, caution, wait, please do not play with my mind, hey. I do not play with my line, I keep protection for mine, you will not touch what is mine. I do not play with my shine, caution.
Hold on, wait, see a black man doing great, with black-owned businesses, building in a different state. Why you snakes way late in the grass, plotting on what you can take, black money in a black bank, mean black money is safe, protected, like it's heavily protected. If he ever feels threatened, then he go with lead and knock him off his check, please check this. For the record, he can never be weak. Disrespecting any checking your cheek. Rep your city, rep it, red, black, and green. Never fall, won't break. There's no limit to what I do for mine. But your soul, they don't take coming with the anger and hate up all of my ancestors combined. You wanna get one time? I keep it fully loaded, extended in a fully auto effing to keep you from crossing that gun line. Catch you in violation. I ain't never shot a caveman. Should be the first, I'ma give you this work. You get in the way of my occupation, yeah. Like I'm the boss and I don't like the way that you talking. This is my office, get permission before you walk in. The yellow tape across the door, miss
caution, wait, please do not play with my mind, hey. I do not play with my lines, wait, I keep protection for mine. You will not touch what is mine. I do not play with my shine, caution, wait, please do not play with my mind, hey. I do not play with my line, wait, I keep protection for mine. You will not touch what is mine. I do not play with my shine, caution.
Good evening, family. Welcome to another edition of Thorough Black Talk with your sister Keisha, your brother Tad, your brother Blacksmith, and your sister Marcia will be joining us in a few. Hope you all are doing well so far this week. We already at Thursday. I'm telling you, boy, already the middle of February. As my mother used to say, time waits for no one. We already in the second month of 2024. And so many things are occurring, but we going, talk about us tonight. We're going to talk about us tonight. How about that? Sister Vanessa, good to see you, fam. Hope you're doing well. I don't know. These markets has been acting real shady lately, sis. I don't know. It's been real shady. I'm getting a little upset. I need Geriatric Joe to be quiet. He messing up the markets here. He got to be quiet. But I see my brother Tad on. You ready, brother Tad? He ready to rock and roll. Brother Tad, how you feeling?
Blessed and highly favored, sis. How you doing?
We still alive. And still kicking.
We ain't going nowhere. Look,
That's
we just
right.
trying to get information that those who ain't prepared, ill-equipped. So they don't go nowhere. Because we not going nowhere. Shout out to everybody tuning in. Magnetic Tyson, Sister Vanessa, Brother Kev. I missed y'all last week. Shout out to
We missed
everybody.
you, brother Tad. We missed you, brother Tad. We had a good time. We took a look at some of the things that I found at the New York Historical Society. Very, very interesting finds. So we discussed that last week. And since you weren't here, um, they have an exhibit on what theologians would classify as prophets, right, from different religious sects. Well, in the middle of this exhibit, guess who they said was a supreme prophet?
Brother Tad.
Sometimes.
Sister Keisha.
No, but Nat Turner. So not only did we call him a prophet, but
Yeah.
some people like good white sources. So
Yeah.
even the historical societies have deemed him a prophet.
Well, we knew that to be true.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Sister Farnessa, yes, these markets is crazy. These markets is doing me bad and pissing me off. Brother Magnetic Peace Tyson, North Kakalaki in the building. My brother
Yeah.
from another mother. Sister Amanette to the Midwest crew in the building. What's good? What's good? What's good?
That's, I'm in that too. I'm in that too. Brother
Brother
Cat,
Ted.
Ducktown.
We got South Kakalaki. I hear I'm gonna be nice. Jim Clyburn may be stepping back a bit from his committee seats, but he seems to think that he can win another season, brother Kev. Do you think he can win another season in office? I don't know. You tell me. You down in North Kakalaki. You tell us what the people talking about.
Sister Keisha, I think you muted. I think you muted, sister. There you
Aunt Marie on the check-in. Aunt Marie on the check-in. I got a surprise for you today, Aunt Marie. I got a
Peace.
surprise for you today. What you say, brother Ted?
I said peace to Aunt Marie.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed, family. So here he go. You better get in here and stop playing with me.
Thanks to Medina, I was in the A. Oh man, they done gave me away. That was my assignment last week. Sabotage Dr. Sukiyana.
Did you see the pull-up? Did you see
Yeah, man. I saw that video.
Tell them what happened, brother Ted. For the people who don't know.
Well, I'm not certain. This is the narrative that's circulating around the video. However, it's alleged the reports of that the woman that interrupted Dr. Sukiyana's presentation down in Atlanta supposedly said she was with him the night before. And his retort was, I never seen this woman a day in my life. Now, that's people creating a narrative because I really didn't hear what she said, but I believe she threw something at Dr. Sukiyana as well while he was on stage. That I saw in the video, but then, with the comments in this digital age, people create a narrative around what we're looking at, and we're not 100% sure. So hopefully we can get our hands on somebody who was there, get their take on it, and let us know what really happened, what really went on. Because in the interim of them stopping the woman from going up to the stage, I wouldn't say she was tackled, but since she was overweight, her balance wasn't what it should be, and she fell to the floor and took a couple of security folks down with her, and it was just a fiasco. And I hope everybody's all right. That's all I could say. I mean, this just happened, was it yesterday? So I think yesterday or the day before. So I guess the details are still rolling in. Very interesting.
One never knows, though, brother Ted. One never
I'm
knows.
wondering what does Dr. Sukiyana got to say? Like,
he said he never saw that woman before in his life.
Ever. So I don't know if she wanted a refund or she like, why you ain't call me back, or I don't know. Strange things going on. But shout out to him and Sucker Polite.
Yeah. always. You know how we do it.
Charlatan.
Yes. Well, we're gonna tell the truth over here. Because we have to get rid of the fake ones. And speaking of fake ones, what we're seeing today, actually, this script plays out over and over throughout time. The same things you're seeing now is the same things that you saw during the civil rights movement. The same things you saw in the civil rights movement, you saw in other movements prior. Tonight, we're going to actually discuss the Niagara movement. Um, for those of you who don't know about the Niagara movement, it was formed in, I believe, 1905 or the early 1900s. We'll get
Yeah,
into
it
the
was
details.
1905. Yes.
Yeah, a little later, but this was a movement that eventually morphed into what you know today as the NAACP. But tonight, as we go through this history of the Niagara movement, I want you all to begin to connect the dots of intelligence. And the reason why I say to focus on intelligence is because, as I just stated, this script continues to play out over and over and over and over and again. And we don't understand that unless we deal with intelligence, we are playing with ourselves because they keep using the same sort of tactics to disturb progressive movements. The exact same scripts, and we're going to show that tonight. Also, I want us to focus on intelligence because I don't know if you all saw the recent interview with Tucker Carlson and Vladimir Putin. Um, I watched it. We watched it here, the Thorough Black Talk crew. It was over 2 hours, this interview. And one key component that he discussed with Tucker Carlson is that throughout his years being the head of Russia, dealing with various U.S. presidents, they have always came to the agreement that it would be best for the two nations to work together. And he was willing to comply with some things to make, um, um, foreign relations better between the two nations. But he said, even though all of the presidents agreed with him in doing that, that they were undermined by the agencies that control this country. Um, and so, even though we have said this many, many times, as well as many other media platforms have discussed, that the United States head is not the president of the United States. He controls nothing. He is an employee. And as a matter of fact, Putin said in the interview that it was agencies, meaning plural, that usurp diplomatic relations. So, if you can, in your spare time, you might want to check out that interview with Tucker Carlson. I think it got maybe over 3 million views already. Um, but check it out and listen. And he also confirmed what we said here in the beginning of this Ukrainian conflict, that the United States have no business in this war. And he actually went through the entire history of that region, how Ukraine succeeded, if you will, from that union. And he also identified them as being a neo-Nazi nation. And so he says that, the United States does not want to deal with such elements. However, they are in full support of Ukraine. So, again, you might want to check that out. I see my brother Black. Black, you ready? He says yes.
Great.
Brother Black, did you see that interview with Vladimir Putin and Tucker Carlson?
No, I didn't, but heard about it, and I'm going to check it out eventually. I'll probably check it out over the weekend. I was the one that said that Tad was in the A setting up Dr. Sukiana. That's my email. Excuse me, YouTube name.
We knew it was you. That's why I said you started trouble before you got in here. We knew you was the ops out over there.
Hey, well, Sister Marcia ain't here yet, so I got to trouble Tad a little bit.
Well, look,
Sister
Sister
Adenike, what's good, Adenike? Good to see you, sis.
I told them
Certainly
offline.
in
I
the
told them
building.
offline that she wasn't. They weren't there. He wasn't there last week. So Sister Marcia started going in on me and you. Something she hardly ever do. How y'all doing?
We good,
bless,
Black.
brother, bless.
But I was saying, that interview, he talked about the entire history of how Ukraine succeeded from that union, how they are not an independent nation, but a rogue nation that is identified as neo-Nazi. So again, these are things that we've already discussed here. And he also talked about um, the rate of currency as far as nations are concerned, where the United States is in relations to China, India, Russia, and Britain. So he discussed that as well. But again, it's a very interesting interview. Again, you can check it out at your leisure. Tucker Carlson interviews Vladimir Putin. But
And watch
tonight
the
we're
full
going to
version. Because real
say
quick,
that again.
and watch the full version. Because one thing I realized, sis, is that on X, formerly known as Twitter, they have more views because they'll push the full video. Meanwhile, Facebook, YouTube, and others will give you a condensed version, or they'll suggest videos that has their narrative. Because as we know, there's a particular spin they put on world events and try to slant the story. So you have to be real careful. On YouTube, you have to really search for it. Even when you put in full, you'll see MSNBC, you'll see other news outlets, and you'll see a short version, 9, 10, maybe even 20 minutes. But this is, again, what, about 2 hours, sis, right?
Yeah, I
2
believe 2 hours and 9 minutes.
Yeah.
But I'm going to try to get the link and put it in the chat so you guys can hold on to it and watch it later at your leisure. But again, you should watch it. It's very, very interesting interview. And again, you know, Putin came with receipts. He gave Tucker Carlson a binder of receipts. So, and also the clip where he says, um, various agencies are running this nation and the complexity of the US government, because each state is its own government, right?
Yes.
Under an umbrella. Each state has its own military, each state has its own finances and everything. So,
Constitution.
yes, so he talked about that complexity in US government in that interview. And again, you can follow the Thorough Black Talk Instagram page. We also have that clip on our page as well. But
Keisha, before you move on, let me say something about that federal government and state governments and stuff. That's what Trump was trying to bring back, states' rights, and that was why that abortion case in Texas was so big, because he wanted to give the right back to the states to determine whether abortion should exist in that state based on what the people voted on, not remove it or keep it. That's why when you hear about it, it's not referred to it by any state individually. It's referred to as a revision of Roe v. Wade, which was about whether it should be federalized to allow abortion or to allow the states to keep that right to, decide whether they want to keep it or not.
And which
correct.
we know Roe v. Wade was based on the lie.
Yeah, well, I'm just, talking about,
Yeah,
the foundation of what she just spoke on.
No,
Right.
I'm in agreement, brother. It's just for our audience, because a lot of times we have subjects and conversations, and people who are new to our show may not be abreast to the information we're talking, because we talk about things people never heard before, and it may
Right.
be common knowledge amongst us.
Right.
But to somebody who just tuning in, they be like, "What the hell are they talking about?" So I always like to preface that, because a lot of people do come here to learn.
Thanks
and
for
that's
adding
why
on, brother. Excuse me. Sorry.
No, it's all right, brother. So I like to make it
Definitely.
fun.
And also too, we've said here on this platform many times, because we study legal cases, whether it's popular or not. That's what we do over here. And we have been saying that there are bills in the hopper to repel some of these rights that we have, these citizen rights that we have. And we've been
Citizen
saying it
right.
for, yes, for a long time. But now there are actually attorneys who are talking about this, saying that they're trying to push us back into Jim Crow. But I will post that on the Thorough Black Talk Facebook page so you guys can see, it's just not us who's saying it. I don't have Esquire behind my name, but God darn it, I understand legalese and I follow these cases. So, I see what's going on. And we have to be very, very strategic in how we move forward in this country. But Brother Black, Brother Tad, today we're going to discuss the Niagara Movement, because people talk about the civil rights movement so often that people don't understand the history of it, where it all comes from, what came before it. And tonight, in our viewing of this video of the Niagara Movement, we're going to stop and discuss. And we want the audience too to give your participation. Let us know what you're thinking, what you're seeing. Again, as you watch it, I want you to think as if you're an intelligence agent. Do you see what's happening unfolding? Can you connect the dots with some of the things that are going on today? So let's check out this video and we'll come back and we'll stop and we'll discuss. Hold on, family. Here we go.
The following program contains mature content, including depictions of graphic violence, discussion of suicide, and the use of a racial epithet in historical context. Viewer discretion is advised.
The early 20th century was a time of racial violence and terror.
Being down, black people being shot in the streets, women, children. We can no longer tolerate this. And it is that kind of resistance and anger that gives rise to the Niagara Movement.
July 1905, 29 African-American men traveled to Niagara Falls. They were creating an organization to fight racism.
These folks who are coming in on that stream to change America and to change the world. From the Old Testament, let justice roll down like cascades of water and righteousness like a mighty stream.
The story of the Niagara Movement is the story of 3 African-American leaders with very different political philosophies.
2 of the 3 were the heart and soul of the movement, W.E.B. Du Bois and William Monroe Trotter.
W.B. Du Bois is the most important American civil act in American history. William Monroe Trotter was the most fiery, passionate, and uncompromising fighter for African-American civil rights in the early 20th century.
Du Bois and Trotter wanted to confront racial injustice head-on, but the most powerful African-American in the country preached accommodation, not confrontation.
Booker T. Washington becomes Black America's president. From about 1895 or so, he is it. He's the strong man. He's the head man. He's the boss.
He tells white people, we don't need to be equal to you socially. The Niagara Movement is the notion that we are breaking away from Booker T. Washington's politics.
You cannot talk about the struggle for civil rights in American history without acknowledging the Niagara Movement. Even though it lasted only a few short years, it left an incredibly powerful legacy and an imprint on the way that we think about the civil rights struggle today.
So what's at stake is, what kind of country is the United States going to be? Is it going to be a democracy? Or is it going to be a country in which the newly emancipated black people are still going to be second-class citizens and slaves?
program has been made possible by a major grant from the John R. O'Shea Foundation, a private Western New York foundation dedicated to enhancing the economic vitality and quality of life for the Buffalo-Niagara region through grant making and network building. With additional support from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people. Community Foundation of Tampa Bay Incorporated, in memory of Susan Howarth. And by Visit Buffalo Niagara, whose mission is to transform our community by inspiring visitors and locals to discover Buffalo.
The Niagara Movement was born at a moment when America was marching confidently into the future. The dawn of the 20th century seemed a time of national optimism and sweeping progress.
It was an era of stark contradiction and hypocrisy. While you have Andrew Carnegie and other industrialists making millions and millions of dollars, vast sums of wealth never seen before, African Americans are cast back into a state of near slavery-like conditions through racial violence. The idea of American progress itself was not seen by the overwhelming majority of African Americans.
In the Reconstruction era after the Civil War, many African Americans in the South had voted, and many were elected to political office. But in the 1870s and 1880s, whites pushed through a rash of sweeping oppressive laws. The Jim Crow era had begun.
Blacks lose the right to vote. Segregation goes from just being a custom to being a law. The Jim Crow system told them where they could go to the washroom and where they could not go. They told them where they could sit, where they could travel, and so on and so forth. So it was a kind of real personal domination that was full of humiliation. And the linchpin of the terror to keep black people in place was lynching.
By the turn of the 20th century, lynching had become increasingly spectacular and carnivalesque in nature, advertised in advance. Literally hundreds, sometimes thousands of people attending these festivals of violence in which African Americans were burned, mutilated, and tortured as a form of entertainment. Lynching was a form of terror that scarred the collective psyches of African Americans.
In this time of repression, humiliation, and terror, the Niagara Movement dared to demand nothing less than full equality.
Niagara Movement Declaration of Principles. We refuse to allow the impression that the Negro American ascends to inferiority, is submissive under oppression, and apologetic before insults. Our voice of protest must never cease so long as America is unjust.
The Niagara Movement was one of the first organizations, one of the first movements that was explicitly centered around an unequivocal demand for African American civil rights and full inclusion into the American body politic.
Now, the Niagara Movement, it wasn't a movement for the LGBTQ. It wasn't a movement for white women. It was a movement for the betterment of Black people who recently come out of enslavement. You have to remember the time. This is 1905, just a few years out of enslavement, and Black people are told, oh, well, pull yourselves up by your own bootstrap. But while you do that, we're going to enact these new laws to keep you restricted, if you will. So then becomes the rise of Jim Crow laws. Again, no other group have to go through this. But today they will tell you we have to figure it out. We have to have committees as far as reparations is concerned. But let's continue to watch and we'll see what they say.
W.E.B. Du Bois and William Monroe Trotter hoped to unleash a mighty current of protest. But the foremost African American leader saw things very differently, and for a very good reason.
Booker T. Washington knows the terrorism of the South. He knows that if you got out of line in any kind of way, you're going to be lynched.
Booker T. Washington was a product of the South. He was born a slave in 1856, was raised in slavery in Virginia. He experienced struggling and clawing and scrapping to become educated. He realized within his bones what it took to survive in the South. He understood the language, the culture, the customs, the rules of the South in a way that a W.B. Du Bois and a William Monroe Trotter did not.
At 16, Booker T. Washington went to Hampton Institute, an agricultural and industrial school for newly freed black men.
He's gone to Hampton. He's learned the Hampton way. Black people don't need a college education, a liberal arts education. And they need to learn how to work with their hands. They need to know how to get along with white people and go along and obey white people.
If you learn how to read and write, if you got a trade, if you could make something of yourself, that was the road to freedom.
In 1881, the 25-year-old Booker T. Washington was named principal of a new school, Tuskegee Institute in East Alabama.
East Alabama in Tuskegee, old black belt plantation country. The soil was no longer fertile. Black people had suffered racial violence. Tuskegee had no railroad. You had to get off at a town that was down the road from Tuskegee and take a buggy, a wagon into Tuskegee.
So now we're coming into an introduction of Booker T. Washington. Now, your thoughts, Brother Tad, on Booker T. Washington. What is your feeling on Mr. Booker T. Washington? Now remember, he was born into slavery. Again, as the piece says, he knows the way of the South, how you don't rattle any bones as far as white folks is concerned, and just get yours. What are your thoughts on Booker T. Washington?
Given the backdrop of enslavement, I can understand his fear. However, he had it right in terms of working with our hands, doing for self. In terms of acquiescing to the system, I get it, given those times. But of course, I don't agree with that. But I think there's space for W.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington. In fact, it reminds me of Roots. And I'm gonna make this brief. I think once we really get a understanding on our story here in North America, in the United States, we'll see the value in the story Roots, because when you watch Roots, there's a scene that I'm quite sure many people don't remember, but one of the descendants of Kunta Kinte, I think it was Chicken George's grandson or great-grandson, right? Because remember, it's Kunta Kinte, he had Kizzy, Kizzy had Chicken George had Tom, and I believe it was Tom's son who had a picture of Booker T. Washington up in his home. And then one day he came in, he was so excited, and he took the picture down and put a picture of W.B. Du Bois up. And he said he just heard a man speak. And his wife's like, what are you doing? You love this guy. It was either he took down Booker T. Washington's picture and put up W.B. Du Bois, or he took down W.B. Du Bois, put up Booker T. Washington. But it addresses the dichotomy of their positions. In Ghana, there's a double-headed lizard, right? In Akan symbols, it's a double-headed lizard called the Fantomreku Dimchemreku. And they constantly fight over food. But the crazy part is they share the same stomach. And I see that symbolic for our people here in America, because both have flaws and both have value. So I think it's very important that we take what's necessary and discard will keep us jammed up. And kowtowing to the Yurugu, as we've seen over the centuries, does not work in our favor.
What do you think, Brother Black, as far as Booker T. Washington is concerned? What are your thoughts on him?
Kind of interesting. When Tad was talking about the double-headed lizard, I saw, you know how like you read an article and they got like banner articles on the side, and at the bottom of the article you read, it said, it was a headline. I just saw the picture, and as soon as I probably read it like 3 in the morning, right before I fell off, like, okay, I'm gonna put the phone down, and 2 seconds later I was asleep. But what that picture had, it had Yurugu sisters who were Siamese twins, and one of them just got married and the other one hated the husband. So, you know, if you're dealing with the psychology of that, at that time, that was like the same difference between Malcolm and Martin, or anybody today and Dr. Sukiyana. I gotta add some levity to it. But real talk, we just gonna hopefully we can all, you know, because I'm a results kind of person. Hopefully we could crystallize the best out of them two and conform, because to one degree or another, based on the times, they had to be sellouts. But their accomplishments can still not be diminished. Even the same thing with I don't call them honorable, but Elijah Muhammad and some people that we know had even up to Baba Garvey. You know what I'm saying? We've all heard that these things, whether we believe it or not, but when you look, it's there if you know how to look for it. And we know how to look for it. So, you know, and being exposed to those contemporaries of today, you know what I'm saying, from how we all know each other. So, you know, out of that came this, you know what I'm saying? We continuing and we're going to do it till we free.
True indeed. I see Sister Marcia. You ready, Marcia? Give it a thumbs up. Marcia, good to see you. What's good? What do you think about Booker T?
Peace, family. Welcome to another Blacktastic Third Black Talk. Good to see everyone on the screen and everyone in the chats.
Peace.
Booker T.
What do you think about Booker T. Washington? I mean, what are your thoughts on him? I have my own, but I'll wait until you go first. Go ahead.
So he was a revolutionary of his own thoughts, right? And I think we are all revolutionaries of our own thoughts. The thing is being able to compromise and work with one another, because we need to throw everything at the wall and figure out what's going to work best for us. We keep saying that my idea, and I think this is where Booker T falls in, my idea is the best idea, and nobody else challenges my idea, because he sent men to jail because they challenged his idea. And he has great ideas, for the mere fact that this Niagara movement is the battle of North and South within the Black community, right? Because he's lived and experienced and understands something, and those two men lived a different type of experience, and yet they all wanted to be right. However, they weren't listening to the people. All the people probably fell in the middle. They could have found a compromise, but ego will dictate how people operate.
But Sister Marcia, real talk. We know today that the Niagara Movement is now the NAACP. From its,
Yeah.
Okay, so from its inception, it was already a sellout organization. And this is why I said what I said before you came on. Let's crystallize the best of whatever they did. Even today's people, even if you don't like polite and certain people, he did enlighten certain people because he had that appeal for his time to at least get them some knowledge. Hopefully they caught on before he started becoming some other dude. You know what I'm saying? That we became to see after a while.
He don't get no turn.
I will disagree.
Me too.
This is not in particular about polite though.
I get your point, brother Black.
I don't even care about the polite movement or anything like that. I'm thinking about where we are as a collective of people, right? And
Wait. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to know y'all position on W.E.B. Du Bois. I mean, Booker T. Washington, because we're gonna get into all of that now.
My bad, Sister Keisha.
My perspective on Booker T. Washington is twofold, right? In the beginning, he was very much of an accommodationist in the beginning of his life. But towards the end of his life, there was a switch and a radical change to where he became a supreme Pan-Africanist. Out of all, he had the most inclusive dialogue with African nations, in particular Liberia, which we've talked about here on this platform as well. Now, Dr. Tareen Wright has written a very interesting book on Booker T. Washington. Let me see if I can put it up there if y'all can see it. Can y'all see that? No? I'll give you the name of it though. But that's by Dr. Tareen Wright. The Making of a Pan-Africanist. And it's very interesting on Booker T. Washington. But again, as Tad said, you have to remember he's just a few years, out of slavery, right? His mother, I believe, an enslaved woman, and his father was a white man. So you have to also look at that complexity, right? This is why, to me, you got to be careful with these biracial folks, because they can switch on you at the drop of a dime, depending on who they're trying to appease at what particular time. And that's a conflicting nature, I believe, that Booker T. Washington had. But we'll get into that a little bit more. Hold on, family. Let's continue, and we'll come back and we'll discuss.
Booker T went down there. There was no school. There was a chicken house, a hen house, a ramshackle barn. They had the grounds. They had the place to build a school. But Washington had to build the school himself, basically. And the way he did that was he gathered students together and they started building it brick by brick. This became the hallmark of Tuskegee Institute, that it was built by the students. They learned brick making while they were building, they learned carpentry while they were building, and they learned trades. All the people who came down to see Tuskegee were amazed.
Booker T. Washington believed in the power and the independence and ingenuity of Black people, and created an institution that to this day stands and continues to educate and produce Black educators and scientists and engineers. My father and my mother and my son were graduates of Tuskegee Institution that was created by Brother Booker T. Washington.
Washington first comes to public attention when he gives a speech at the Atlanta Exposition in 1895.
This is perhaps the first time in the South that you would have on the speaker dais with white people a person of African descent. And he gets his moment to speak.
He had a way of coming out on the stage and putting his hands in his pockets and just standing there motionless and quiet for a while. And this had a way of quieting the audience. And once he had them in his hand, he held them in his hand. He was a brilliant orator.
He offered a solution to one of the most vexing problems of the day, the so-called race question, or the Negro problem.
The masses of us ought to live by the production of our hands. We shall prosper as we learn to dignify and glorify common labor. It is at the bottom of life we should begin, and not the top.
Just that commentary that we should start at the bottom and not at the top. That I find very problematic at that particular time, because again, remember, they were told to, all right, we're gonna let you go off the plantations, but you fend for yourself. I don't know how you're gonna do it, but you fend for yourself. And as a matter of fact, like I said, I'm gonna enact some laws that's gonna restrict you from doing what you must do. So you deal with that. On top of that, you have to wonder, because again, with Booker T. Washington, um, the complexing nature that he has to appease to his former slave masters. Today, you have Black people who want to appease the system, don't want to ruffle any feathers. Just stay on the low, keep quiet, and do your thing. They won't bother you. We still have that mentality today. So that's why I say, Brother Tad and Sister Marcy and Brother Black, that you cannot disconnect yourself from your DNA. It's still prevalent today. Your thoughts, Brother Tad?
In terms of what?
In terms of how it is that back then, although he was just a couple of years out of enslavement, his mother being an enslaved woman, his father being a white man who allegedly lived across the street or whatever, having that complexity in his philosophy on how to deal with the system that they live under, two, to progress themselves economically. But in comparison today in 2024, Brother Tag, so many people still have this mentality. So again, I have to ask, was Booker T. Washington wrong? Or is it that complexity that we have to deal with that's blocking us from being progressive as far as dealing with this Urugu the way we have to?
I think given the times that it was in, I think it was blatant. What's going on right now in 2024, because they smile in our face and because they've learned how to master the game, because they study our story and theirs, and we just go with whatever's given to us. Now, going back to Booker T. Washington, he understood that, let's put in historical context, he understood that labor builds wealth in that context, because without our labor, white folks wasn't going to have no wealth. And he understood that because it was blatant as that. If you don't pick this cotton, they don't get no money. You don't pick this sugar cane, you don't pick this tobacco, they don't make no money. We literally built this nation from the White House down to the roads. So we understood the power in labor, in producing. But fast forward to 2024, we have become consumers. Whatever's given to us, we take in and we consume it. Whether it's clothes, whether it's food, whether it's information, even misinformation, to be more exact. So back then with Booker T. Washington, he really had a first-hand experience on how this game runs. Unfortunately, we are so disconnected, living in this literal new world. It's literally the new world of the new world order. Notice you don't even hear politicians talk about moving into the new world anymore. Because with the pandemic, that was the global reset that we've heard from Bush Sr., from Jimmy Carter to Bush Jr. to Barack Obama. They all talked about the new world, and here we are. But remember, when this country was being founded, it was called the New World. We're just living in the New World Order. But who built this new world? We did. And Booker T. Washington and all those who were enslaved understood, because we're still humans. We still had a higher level of intelligence that brought us this far, that made it possible for us to be alive today, sit here, have these conversations, not be out of our minds, and be able to articulate it and put it in its proper context. That is the brilliance of who we are. But the human side, we still have flaws. So what Booker T. Washington was talking about was right, because we're still talking about building our own schools. You got Dr. Sukiana collecting money for a school that ain't even nothing being done with. And I always tell people, everything that we keep talking about we need this day and age, we've already had. from our own communities to our own schools, grocery stores, to our own governments. Because though after during the Reconstruction era, we occupied more offices as Black folks than we do now, we still had a government within our community of what was acceptable, what wasn't, how character development and decency was the order of the day, not to fly in the face of the lies that was told about us. Because it goes back to your point at the top of the show about them trying to bring Jim Crow laws back. Because as we constantly talk about, those Jim Crow laws were laws created based on lies and fictitious cartoon characters. They created a narrative about who we are and then developed laws around that. And when you fast forward to this day and age, most people don't even know who Booker T. Washington or W.B. Du Bois is, let alone talk about their ideological differences, how it helps and hurts our community. So Booker T. Washington and W.B. Du Bois coming right out of slavery. They understood who the ops was. They knew who the enemies were. Even Frederick Douglass knew who the enemies were when he was invited to go speak at the 4th of July get together that they had. And he was smart enough to understand that he was being insulted. But you ask Negroes today, come speak at a Klan rally, they'll be happy. Oh, the Klan is not racist anymore. The regression of our intelligence is so phenomenal, sis, that for us to have these conversations and still not be where we're supposed to be is telling within itself. So shout out to Booker T. Washington, who built the bricks, created the bricks to build his own institute. That's self-reliance for you. He didn't go to the Chinaman, to the Arab or the white man, say, yo, can you sell me some bricks? He built his own bricks to build his own institution. Doing that now seems so far-fetched because we're so out the loop, because we want to pander to Black politicians. Hopefully we could get on in a good graces, because look at the mayor we have now. Some people think that's a good thing. We got a Black mayor. Like, is you kidding me? Is you kidding me? I mean, I could go deeper into that, but I'm going to just stop right there because we're talking about Booker T. Washington and the value of his ideas on how to move us forward as a race.
Sister Marie, she said, I agree with him on the labor. He felt that we shouldn't be just intellectuals as far as college only. He felt we should also know how to work with our hands, learn trades. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
We literally built this. We built the White House. And Benjamin Banneker designed Washington, D.C., even though they'll give the credit to what's the name, Pierre Lafont, ENFANT, Pierre Lafont, however you pronounce his name. But they said he was a stinking drunkard. But again, Black folks couldn't get credit for all the greatness that we've done.
Even facts. So, to put us in the same category as other folks is disrespectful in itself. So when I hear other people try to lump all of us, everybody, we doing for everybody in a group, it really pisses me off, because they really don't understand what it is that they're doing. They're undermining what our ancestors said we should do. We should do. And as we go through this, we're going to see the conflicting nature between leaderships in organizations that still suffer from the same things today. It's like nobody is learning the lessons here. Nobody sees that the Yurugu use the same scripts over and over, and because it works. It works,
If it ain't broke, don't. If it ain't broke, don't.
This is the part of our arrested development, right? Because we won't look within and figure out what the problem is. Oh, I know what the problem is, my sister, my brother, this is what the problem is, and blah, 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 blah. The problem is, okay, so we all know what the problem is. Great. So where's the solution to the problem if you know what the problem? Well, my sister, you got to understand the white man and the white man and, the white man. So if we understand the problem, we know the problem, and you're still toting that this is the problem, then we have not yet solved the problem with going within and figuring out that we don't need to be the head NE in charge. We can work together. And that is what I think is our fundamental problem, is that we always want to be the NE in charge versus working together and figuring out how to get things done. But that's my 2 cents.
It is. It's the same thing that we're dealing with today. You know, when you look at the three main figures of the Niagara Movement, which is Booker T. Washington, W.E.B. Du Bois, and Monroe Trotter, you see the different dynamics in the three of them. However, because, and I always say this, our lack of power. Once you get a taste of it, you don't know how to behave. And they think that they can operate the same way the Yorugu does, but you can't because we aren't the same folks. But nobody seems to get this script. Sister Farnessa says, same here, Sister Keisha. I automatically view them as clowns when they lump us all in together. Yeah, my fight ain't your fight. My fight ain't your fight. And my ancestors didn't fight your fight. So I'm not fighting your fight. You on your own. Stay over there. You know, Sister Pat said, yeah, why build a different mousetrap when the old one works? Go ahead, Brother Tad.
So W.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington, like, they didn't call themselves woke. They wasn't fighting for the woke movement. It wasn't the woke culture. Like, help me out. Because, I mean, I thought what we're fighting for in 2024 is for blacks, gays, migrants, midgets, Trans-Ams.
Wait. But before you go that far, though, you have to define which woke you're talking about. Erykah Badu, Master Teacher, woke, or Donald Trump and Pence woke?
It didn't matter. Neither Monroe Trotter, W.E.B. Du Bois, or Booker T. Washington identified as such.
Okay.
They were all woke. But the
answer is no. The answer is no. It's an emphatic hell no. So every time somebody comes to us with this BS, this as my grandmom used to say, this cockamamie bulls. You come with this cockamamie bull. Oh, we're all woke. I understand the struggle, and gay is the new black, and all this kind of foolishness, because it's not serving us well. And the crazy part is what's happening right now is now people are actually waking up, for lack of better words, to what we have been saying. Because as you know, on this show, us four know, we've been ahead of the curve because we've been studying for decades about our stories for centuries, dare I say thousands of years, when we go back to ancient Kemet and the early civilizations of West Africa. But when we just talk about our sojourn here in the United States of America, everything we're saying is not new. We're talking about centuries old information, and people are just catching up. Dr. Claude told us back in 2010, by 2015 is going to be over for us, because the United States is going to open the floodgates to replace us with migrants. He said that. Hold on.
And cried on stage when he said it.
When racist Trump, and I do air quotes, said, let's build the wall, keep them folks out because we have to take care of the people here first, everybody called them racist. First of all, show me a U.S. president that wasn't racist, and I got $1 million for you. My point is, I don't got $1 million because you can't show me a United States president that wasn't racist. Whether you're talking about George Washington or Barack Obama, whoever you're talking about, they all push black people to the burner. Even when Barack Obama says that we shouldn't give reparations, even though this United States government that he represents said that we should give reparations, the 40 acres and a mule, it's not whether we should, it was when are we going to get our reparations. But with the political red tape and all this stuff. But this conversation, when we go out on these battlefields, these intellectual battlefields, we got to have our sharpest tools in the toolbox to combat this, because we are dealing with articulate idiots. They make things sound good because the majority of the people in the United States are straight idiots. You hear me? They are idiots. Ask them the 3 branches of government, they can't tell you. Ask them who was the first black person to ever run for president of the United States. They can't tell you. They'll tell you Barack Obama. And it kills me that everybody says vote, 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 but they can't tell you who their local council person is. And that's where your vote matters. Like it's they gave us what Malcolm said, they gave us poor education that makes us have poor jobs, so we can only afford to live in poor neighborhoods. And when you look at us as a community, I don't want to just point out our young people, but our young people are literally our future. And when you look at where they are mentally, intellectually, Sister Keisha, you're in fashion, right? You see all of these young people with Christian Dior, Balenciaga, and Gucci, and they look like straight bums because they forgot what decency looked like. Clean and neat. Simple as that. You don't need no big fancy name. Clean and neat. But they'll come outside with a dirty Versace shirt on and think they're killing it with swag. They'll come out with holy Yeezys and think they're killing it with quote unquote swag. And that's because our value system has been lost, because we put our value system in the things that was forced upon us and given to us by our open enemies. And the things of value like family, community, love of self is all out the window. None of that has value compared to what European folks give you. Because when you watch the entertainers of today, I just saw a video of Ice Spice with her upside down cross, throwing up her Baphomet signs. When you see Tyler, the Creator, doing the same thing. When you see the little fun boy, Little Nas X, doing the same thing, giving fellatio to the devil. They are coming out and letting you know who they are. They are their ancestors' children, like we are ours, but we don't even step into our God consciousness to properly combat this, or even have the level of courage to combat all of this that's being forced down our children's throat. I seen a video the other day, and I'm gonna wrap this up, Sister Keisha, but I saw a video the other day that broke my heart. In Chicago, 2 dudes jumped out of a car and gunned another brother down while he had his children with him. His children had to run. Had to be about 4 and 6 years old. Like when I was coming up in the streets, when you had beef with the ops, and chances are we're gonna do it with the hands. But if they was with their family, they got a pass. We're not gonna kick your ass now because you got your kids, you got your moms, but I'm gonna see you again. Right now, it is Wild West. And then there was another video I saw today in the shower where there was a white lady giving out abortion pamphlets to the children. Thank God for the teachers, the black teachers, because they ran down on her and told her, get the hell out of here. And this is what we need, because our children don't know. Because what they're doing is subtly promoting genocide. Yeah, if you get pregnant, just kill the baby. But we know Margaret Sanger came up with that for the black problem. Kill them before they're born. That's why we got abortion clinics in our community. So in essence, my point is that we are literally fighting for our survival. And it may sound cliche, but this is a real thing. And we're being replaced by a whole bunch of migrant gang members and sleeper cells from other countries, because there's more Chinese coming here than anybody else. More communist Red China military age people coming in than we can even. And Department of Justice said so many terrorist related folks came in, they lost track with these open borders. So how crazy was Trump when he said, yo, let's just shut the gate down while we handle our stuff in-house first? I can't disagree with that. Right is right. And I don't care who said it. But I'm gonna step off my soapbox. I apologize.
Facts. No, brother Tad, you was telling the truth. Facts. And also Sister Marie said she saw that video too. Those black teachers told that Yoruba, get the hell out of here. They're kids. Get out of here. But
promoting
again,
abortion,
yes.
a death style. that killing your baby is your solution to birth control.
And I'm glad you brought up how people dress. Go ahead.
And not to knock anybody who has had one, not passing judgment. I'm just saying we didn't know these things. And now that we know, we have to operate with this new information and stop doing the old stuff we used to do. Because again, like I said, we got new listeners. We got people who are here to learn and they don't know. And sometimes as those of us who are aware and has had this information for so long, sometimes we could come off as snarky and arrogant and like we're judging people. And I just want our audience to know that we are not judging people because we didn't always have this information. We from the hoods too. We from the same hoods. Brother Blacksmith from the hoodie hood because he from the Bronx. Sister Marcia is from the suburban hood because she from Queens. But I'm from the Stein, Sister Keisha from Fort Greene. So these situations and the mindsets we talking about are what we once had and people in our family may still have.
Hold on. I may be from Dainty, Queens.
No, Sister Keisha,
my foundation was East New York. All right?
What part, though?
Dumont between Miller and Bradford.
My bad.
That's the East. That's the East.
New York.
I was right across from Martin Luther King Park, and shit went down there.
Yes, yeah. She was from Brownsville. My bad to out of towners. Brownsville is almost as bad as the Bronx.
That's not Brownsville. That's just the key.
That's East New York. That's the East.
East New York.
Listen, my cousin Sharice used to live on Miller Avenue.
It was dirty. And don't you I can never go behind the playground. What are you doing back there? Oh, I'm watching the boys play football. No, get in. And that park was beautiful. Like it, and it had its section. It really.
You let him trigger you into that hood definition stuff? Come on, man.
Listen, he's not gonna take my life away from me. I was East. I was
Sister Keisha.
She was out there with Uncle Murder.
You shot the sheriff
and the deputy.
Yo, I played that song for about 10 years straight. Every time police got unalive. It happens too, so I'm not trying to be disrespectful. The subject came up. I had to slide that in there.
Oh my God, family. But you know, as Brother Tad said, even he got me laughing. Sister Marcia got me laughing. But even with, you know, how we dress and how we carried ourselves, because there were so many caricatures or portray of Black people that we were filthy, that we were unkept. Actually, people like Booker T. Washington, William Monroe Trotter, and others started a campaign, if you will, within the Black press, showing us dressed in our best, always looking our best. And then when you look at generations prior to Gen X, that was a requirement. You didn't come out looking crazy. You looked your best. I don't care if you was going down the street to the store. You looked your best. But now it's a thing to look nasty, to be dirty, to smell. This is crazy.
And I'm sorry if I cuss, but the brothers, you see their whole little cheeks, and you're like, "What is that? I don't want to see that."
So again, are we regressing, going backward, or are some really identifying with their DNA? Maybe your ancestors was out there like that. You know what I mean? But I'm gonna get off my soapbox. Let's continue, and we'll come. Here we go.
What really Washington wanted was financial well-being for Black people. He was promoting this movement in a way that was not offensive to white people.
He's trying to figure out a way, how do we survive and yet make progress? Let's try to better ourselves materially, economically. Let's prove to the white man that we are of value and that we're willing to work hard.
African Americans would stay in their place, that they would be content with their status as workers and not challenge the racial status quo.
When white people and white leaders hear that, they are like, oh my God, That's it. You had black people and white people crying when they heard him speak.
His speech would be called the Atlanta Compromise.
By the time the speech ends, folks are described in the press accounts as jumping up on tables, hurrah.
The Atlanta Compromise, it's one of the most significant speeches in Black history because it makes Booker the leader of his race.
It just catapulted him into stardom. That is why the money is going to flow to him. So he builds this powerful organization. He's got the machinery. He's got the white money. He's got it all. And so he becomes the Wizard of Tuskegee.
Washington did things that no African American had been able to do in the history of the United States, navigating his way through the complexities of the color line and white supremacy in the South, but more importantly, to develop a power base which he could lead and to speak as the unquestioned voice of the Negro.
Washington's Atlanta Compromise speech was soon reflected in a landmark judicial decision.
The Plessy versus Ferguson decision was a ruling by the Supreme Court of the United States of America that effectively upheld that white supremacy is legal. So if
white supremacy is the law, it's the law. So I want you all to keep in mind that when you see police officers or agents of the state shoot us down with impunity and they get away with it, it's because it's the law. It maintains itself as the law because you, the electorates, keep voting for it. You keep voting for people who keep these policies in place. Brother Tad told you, and Brother Black told you that Dr. Claude Anderson warned us about an influx of migrants. Nobody listened. However, you continue to vote a Democrat Party that has a history of doing you in. And we show this over and over every week on this show. Last week, I showed y'all what their voting ticket looked like during the time of Frederick Douglass, where it said, and I quote, "No Negro vote." Keep you in place. So you have to ask yourselves as voters, are you doing the will of your ancestors? Or are you doing the will of those who enslaved them? I'm just asking the question. I'm not saying what you should and should not do. However, I have to ask the question because even in our local politics, which really governs your everyday life, it's not the presidential election. It isn't. It's your local offices that govern your everyday life. As Brother Tad says, I can ask persons where you live at. Who is your representation locally? And a lot of people can't tell you. However, you go to a polling booth every 2 to 4 years and you vote for folks and you don't understand their platforms. Because if you did, there is no way in hell you can vote for these people. There is no way in hell. If you just read, like you have these two young Democrats, one in the state of Tennessee, and I forget the other state, but they're very young. Anyway, the policies that they have, look at their website. They tell you everything that they are in support of, and every policy undermines us directly. Please go to Eric Adams' website when he was running for election. Please read what he has there. Please read. These people tell you. But because we aren't politically astute, it goes over our heads and we take these benign neglect commentary as if it's good law and they're going to look out for us, but they never do. They never do. Let's continue and we'll come back and discuss, family. Here we go.
Effectively, it allows for there to be two nations in this country
black people will have separate facilities, but they will be equal to white facilities. But of course, there was never going to be any possibility that black facilities, schools, and so on, were going to be separate but equal.
The Plessy decision institutionalized racial inequality in America. Booker T. Washington accepted that inequality, a stance that would eventually trigger the birth of the Niagara Movement. But in the late 1890s, every prominent African-American leader of the day applauded his compromise, and that included a brilliant young sociology professor, 27 years old and fresh out of Harvard, W.E.B. Du Bois.
W.B. Du Bois was born in 1868 in Great Barrington, Massachusetts, in the Berkshire Hills. He was one of just a small handful of black people in his town. He experienced a type of freedom that many black people, particularly those in the South, knew nothing of. He was, however, not immune to racism. As a young schoolboy, he became acutely aware of his blackness.
I, as a Negro in this school, seemed to be looked upon as unusual by everybody. I very early got the idea that what I was going to do was to prove that Negroes were just like other people.
Du Bois, one of the most extraordinary intellectuals that the United States has ever produced. He earns a bachelor's from Fisk University, one of the top historically black colleges at the time. Then he goes to Harvard and he earns a second bachelor's, and then he earns a master's degree from Harvard.
In 1895, he became the first African American to earn a PhD from Harvard University.
The difference between Booker T. Washington and W.B. Du Bois is the difference between day and night. Booker T. Washington was a political boss. Du Bois is an intellectual, an academic intellectual, a man of passion, a man of poetry, a man of literature.
In the late 1890s, he pretty much endorses Washington's program and at times blames black people for their predicament.
The American Negro must become self-supporting, a source of strength and power, instead of a menace and a burden to the nation. W.E.B. Du Bois.
It says that Booker T. Washington was a political boss. He was a political boss. But W.E.B. Du Bois was an intellectual.
Sis, we can't hear you.
Y'all can't hear me?
I hear her clearly.
It's clear to me. It's clear to me.
So anyway, Booker T. Washington is a political boss. Now, how did he become a political boss? Who made him a political boss? Remember, this is the beginning of Reconstruction. You have all of these black towns popping up all over the country that are self-sustaining, not just Tuskegee, but are self-sustaining in North Carolina, right? In Tulsa, Oklahoma, in Brooklyn, New York, right? In Virginia, right? Even in Virginia, where they are prosperous. Who made him a political boss? Remember, in the beginning, they said that he had white money behind him. Today, when it comes to these presidential elections, you have these political bosses that they put before you, folks like your Sharptons and your Joy Reids and the like. Where do they come from? Whose money is backing them, right? The enemy knows that Booker T. Washington wants to prove to the black world that if you keep your nose down, that if you just be good, these people will throw you some bread and we can continue to build for ourselves, right? However, privately, Booker T. Washington begins to catalog the various lynchings that are happening. Remember, Booker T. is from the South. W.E.B. Du Bois is from Boston, Massachusetts. Again, two different upbringings around the same time. Remember too, Fred Douglass was in his decline. Remember, he was the supreme orator. Remember all of the white money and abolitionists who were pushing him, and those who stood against Martin Delany. It's the same paradigm. It keeps happening.
But in April 1899, a horrific event in Georgia changed everything for W.E.B. Du Bois. A black man named Sam Hose was accused of killing his employer.
He was in jail, waiting execution, and a mob just came along, stole him from the jail.
Sam Hose was lynched.
They tortured him. They burned him alive. They took pieces of his body and displayed them in stores for sale as souvenirs.
W.B. Du Bois heard about this lynching. He heard that the charred knuckles of Sam Hose were on display in a grocery store window.
Du Bois says that he was stopped dead in his tracks.
As he recalled later, a red ray struck him, and he realized that one could not be a cool, calm, detached scientist while African Americans, while Negroes were being burned, starved, and mutilated.
He realized at that time that data was not enough. Sociology was not enough. And it was at that moment where he decided that in addition to the data, he was thinking critically about not just uplift of the race, but liberation, but freedom from danger.
I changed from studying the Negro problem to letting people know just what the colored people were suffering. W.E.B. Du Bois.
That is the spirit then that is going to lead Du Bois to be an organizer of the Niagara Movement. He was one of the greatest scholars that America has produced, but he's also one of the greatest activists that America has ever produced.
In 1900, Du Bois took the first step in a journey toward radical protest. He set out to challenge the racist stereotypes of American culture.
We see in exhibitions this pervasive cultural imagery that continually portrays African Americans as uncivilized, as backwards, as savages. And this cultural imagery continues to reinforce white supremacist logics about supposed African American inferiority.
In 1901, the city of Buffalo, New York hosted an enormous World's Fair, the Pan American Exposition. Several exhibits depicted Black people.
The old plantation, representing a time when African Americans were enslaved, and Darkest Africa, representing African Americans as savages. African Americans in Buffalo, particularly a group of African American women who were in opposition to the old plantation and Darkest Africa exhibit. These women wanted to advocate for a picture, a portrait, if you would, of African Americans as accomplished, contributing individuals. They wanted to have the Negro exhibit at the Pan Am, created by W.E.B. Du Bois.
Du Bois put together a remarkable series of displays, photographs refuting racist caricatures of Black people as savages, as animalistic-like creatures, instead showing Black people fully dressed in Victorian-era clothing, looking dignified and respectable. He also put together an incredible series of graphs and charts filled with striking, colorful images, which demonstrated the ways in which African Americans had achieved unprecedented levels of education, wealth, other forms of progress since emancipation. This was part of Du Bois's approach to confronting the characteristics of African Americans as somehow uncivilized, as somehow unworthy of civil rights.
Again, us wanting to prove to the Yorugu that we are of value. Today, we still have these same type of problems. Still, you have people in politics and in leadership in business want us to prove to the Yorugu that we are of value. That never works. It didn't work back then, and it don't work now. Now, visually, you can see at your fingertips a black man or woman being choked out by the police or murdered by the police or some Yorugu. The same was back then. So I have to ask the question, what has changed in our approach to the movement and the Yorugu and how they address us? Sister Marcia, any change?
No, there has been no change. We've already been programmed. We saw this young man was taken out of his jail cell and they enacted the law in their own hands. And we constantly see them enacting the law in their own hands. We have Mike Brown, we have Trayvon Martin, we have, what's the guy from Staten Island?
Eric Garner.
Thank you so much. So we have examples for, even if we just look at the past 10 years, we have so many examples of them lynching us before us, and we're not doing anything, but we make some noise one day, and the next day we go back to buying Versace and all that other stuff. So we have yet to learn how to effectively challenge the system and what it takes to effectively challenge the system. The only time we've effectively challenged the system is those 385 days that those people in Montgomery walked. From that time, we have yet to accomplish that level of dedication and passion for the liberation of our people. And during those times, the economic swell that occurred within our community cannot be compared to today, because we stand up one day, and then the next day we're shopping and we're doing our things. So I don't know. For right now, Brother Black tells us to wait for the flash, but even if the flash comes, what's going to happen if we are not in order? And we are just not in order.
I didn't tell you wait for the flash. You should be acting as it comes.
Okay.
And hold on, I'm answering your question. I'm real talk. I'm not trying to be funny this time. I'm being dead serious. Real talk. What I'm saying is exactly what you're saying. What we're doing, we're gonna roll into a management position off top because we're talking about it. There are people who still this day, right now, as we speak, if they saw this show, them niggas is crazy. That's the first thing they're gonna say. That's all I got to say on that.
Facts.
And I agree.
But
the way we challenge the system is with the shift in our mindset. See, we keep appeasing to them because we value them. Once we realize that they really have no value nowhere in our lives, we'll stop looking for their approval. And we'll start looking for the approval within ourselves. As long as we still look up to them, we're gonna have this. Even as you named the brothers that was murdered, Sister Marcia, we talk about their fear. Because all of this is predicated on their fear, as Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, peace be upon her, talks about in the ISIS paper, fear of their genetic annihilation. And I don't know if y'all saw the video, but just recently in Florida, an acorn hits the patrol car that had a brother handcuffed in the back. The cop thought the acorn hitting the car was a gunshot, and he lit up the car and got clipped.
Wasn't the brother in handcuffs in the car? So where did he get?
But again, this is the fear, because even when you go back to Django, I can't think of the books that talk about it right now, but we know for a brief period, Django was a cultural phenomenon, and anytime you have that, white folks always blow the dog whistle. And when Monsieur Candy was talking to Django about Ben, shaving his father, because this is very important. He said, I don't understand y'all. He said, you know, Ben was a faithful old servant who served my father faithfully till the day my father died, shaved him every day. Remember when he had the skull, because he also went into the science of phrenology without us being aware, because if you don't know, you just don't know. He said, had the roles been reversed, I would have cut his throat without a second thought.
A long time ago.
They know. Listen, Brother Black, they know that once that flash happens and we in management position and we get back in power, they know their time is up. But the one thing about us, we can't, and I'm be honest, we can't see to the depths of evil that they have.
Absolutely.
We're not cutting babies out of stomachs.
We are not.
Skulls. We are not doing that.
No.
See, and I always tell people, Black people plight is different. Our revolution is different from the sexual revolution, the financial revolution, the cultural revolution. The Black revolution is about restoring things back to its natural order. These folks have turned everything upside down. Our mission is to return things back to its natural order. That means us operating in our God and Goddess consciousness, understanding right and wrong, not being confused about what is a male and what is a female, or what is a man and what is a woman. That type of confusion shows you how far we have sunk as Black people. And this is why these conversations are important. But Sister Marcia, this is how we challenge the system, by not participating in it.
I totally agree. Well,
I know you do.
What I'm vegging in is the fact that we saw this. Those 12 years of Reconstruction, when our people had amassed wealth that till this day we still haven't amassed.
No, we amassed it. We amassed
No,
it.
we have not. We have not amassed.
Don't say that. Don't say that.
Look at the numbers.
Hold up. Dr. Claude Anderson and every other financial guru told us, Marcia, if we aggregate our money, what position will we be in? What nation? Just Black Americans alone. If we put our money together, where would we be as a nation? In the top 10. So we don't have the money? It's 200 and something nations in the world. We don't have the money to be in the top 10? Are you kidding? But see, listen, Sister Marcia, because we don't want to confuse the audience. We have the money. It is our value system. And that's what I was saying about people. We the only ones running around with $300, $500 belts in the projects. It's just us. Rich folks don't even. Look how Steve Jobs dressed. Look how Bill Gates dressed. Look how people with real wealth dress compared to those without wealth. We have the money, Sister Marcia, and we got to stop speaking that poverty into existence. Because we have the money.
Poverty. What I'm saying is,
it is by saying we don't have. That's lack.
No, that's not what I'm saying. You're not listening clearly. If we look at the amount of wealth that our forefathers, our ancestors created during the Reconstruction period, and we amortize that to today's wealth within our community, we still haven't reached that wealth. That's all I'm saying.
Tom. I agree with that, right? But you got to look at the time it was. We created the wealth. We did not control the wealth. It's a difference. We literally built this country. We built the wealth of this country. That's why we deserve reparations.
No, I don't disagree with that.
I'm talking about what we control right now.
We're not controlling anything right now. We control more than we do now. There was more of a control. We probably did not, and I don't know, I'd have to do some research on that. We probably didn't have the distribution of exports globally, but this is one of the things as we veggie into Booker T as a Pan-Africanist that he was looking into. But there are so many things that we controlled at that period of time. Let's just look at Black media. That was our control base. We controlled that Black media. We don't control anything right now.
Right. I get that point. I get the point you're making. I get the point you're making because back then it was out of necessity. But when we talk about terms of dollar signs, because we did control our communities, you're right. Those we did control. But I'm talking about right now, the only thing we don't control is our mindset. That's what we're missing. If we employed the mindset of our ancestors then, of what was it? The Civil Rights Bill of 1866 is where the Niagara Movement started from. Because remember, it was predicated on our civil rights. Because there's so much of our story that's left out. So when you talk to the average Black person about civil rights, they'll think of the civil rights of the 1960s and not realize that Dr. King was building on what was on the records of 1866, 100 years later. We are so far behind the ball. And this is why we got to think futuristic. This is why I constantly say, let's not say we don't have and what we don't, because we do. Because look how we travel abroad. What gets me, and this is a little thorn in my side sometimes, because granted, we built this country, right? But I always say there's no place that we cannot go on this planet. There's some places I don't want to go. However, Africa is wide open for us. I just saw a video the other day by Joseph Malema. Dope video. He's talking about getting rid of the corruption on the continent and open the floodgates for all of us to go home. Why? Because Africa is the future. Africa has always been the future. But the thing is, we get so invested trying to win back lost money. That's what gamblers do. Gamblers sit at the table. They say, all right, I'm only going to bet $1,000 tonight. They lose that $1,000 instead of just taking a L. They keep going deeper in debt, trying to get back what they already lost. We will not regain what we lost here in this country.
What you singing? Text 'em Hold 'em by Beyonce?
Yeah, singing that. My point is that we got to start looking to the future. We got to start operating a mindset of abundance, because we always operating from a deficit. We always thinking lack. Our ancestors always saw the future. That's why they were able to do these fly things you're talking about, because we saw the future. Nobody's trying to go back to slavery. They just came out of slavery. The future was bright. Us, unfortunately, we haven't really lived there. We have it in our DNA. But when the last time a white person really put their hands on you? Be honest. They didn't put their hands on me except police officers. But I promise you, I done touched more white folks than put my hands on them than they done me. And my point is that we have to stop. And I'm going to pass you the mic. But the negative characteristics of what has happened to us, sometimes we got to disown that and start creating a new future, a new paradigm for ourselves. In fact, Dr. Clark and Dr. Ben wrote a book together called New Dimensions in African History. Dr. Amos Wilson and the Falsification of African Consciousness. We have to start seeing ourselves in a winning position and operating in that modality. Unfortunately, too many times, and I get it, sis, because I'm in the hood. I get on the train at Franklin Avenue. It's discouraged. It's horrible. Junkies, bummy gang members. But I understand that these are conditions created for our folks, but we don't have to stay in this. And those of us that know, we have to constantly have positive, uplifting conversations to move our folks up out of it. Because too many of our people run around with this woe is me mentality, and it keeps you stuck there. See how the mind works? Is if you think about positive things, it puts you in a positive mood. You think about upsetting, traumatizing things, it puts you in a traumatizing mindset. And unfortunately, we don't look at the greatness of our ancestors. We just look at ourselves as being victims of white folks. And I'm not a victim of nobody. That's like you on the basketball court and your team is down a few points, but it ain't over. It ain't over. You have to be optimistic and say, I could still win this. And I know as African people who are still here in February 15th, 2024, the Gregorian calendar, we have not lost it all. We have not lost it all. Just to the fact that we can sit here and have this open, honest conversation is a testament to our resilience and how can nobody keep us down, no matter what was done to us. The genocide, the drugs, the alcohol, the germ warfare, the chemical warfare, the biological, everything they've done could not destroy us. And this is something we should celebrate, but we got to teach it to our children, because unfortunately, them blending them, when I say them, the other woke folks outside of our African-centered consciousness, the homos, the browns, the yellows, the non-whites, everybody who wants to attach themselves to our plight keeps operating from a victim mentality and pulling us down while we trying to rise up out of our conditions. They like, oh, black people getting up, let me attach this homo flag to it. Oh, the black people getting up, let me attach my Asian flag to it. And here they pulling us down. Oh, we all victims of white people. We know who white people is. We trying to get our shit together. Leave us alone. Get off my ankle. And not to be so long-winded, but that's my mindset of winning. I'm moving in the mindset of winning. That's why I talk a lot of shit, because I ain't scared of nobody. I've stood in these courts. My kids used to think I was crazy, arguing with police, arguing with judges, arguing with whoever, because I understand how power works. People only have the power over you once you acquiesce. Once you release your power to them, they got you. But as long as you hold your power, that's the conflict. That's when the fighting and the fisticuffs come in, because they're trying to dominate you and you refuse to. That's what Nat Turner was about. That's what Dr. King and Malcolm was about. We can't let people have control over us. And as long as we bind to their narrative that they up here and we're down here, we're going to stay down here because we keep operating here. But once we start saying, yo, they ain't no better than me. And in fact, you start realizing, you know what? I'm better than them because I don't have to cheat. I operate from a Mayat position. Truth, justice, righteousness, harmony, balance, and reciprocity. While they operating with thievery, trickery, lies, and all that. You know what I mean? And I like, for me, I like the conversation to always go to a conversation of abundance from us winning. Like, what's the McFadden and Whitehead said, ain't no stopping us now? We have to operate like that because too many of our folks want to be held down. They just like it down there. Look at Dr. Sukiana. He sell the woe is me all the time. Great orator, the King Kong. But mentally he's caged because he's robbing our people and then he's selling fear instead of selling optimism. And you don't even got to sell it. Just build it and show why your cause is so righteous. Look at what the UAM has done for us. It has showed us that we can win. There's so much that we should be celebrating that, I don't know, I'm going to step off my soapbox because I hear what you're saying, but we have the money. We just don't have the mindset, is my point. I'm sorry to go around the block.
Sister Keisha, let me say this real quick. Every time they go at it, you get kicked off or whatever happens to you, because that's when it first started happening.
I peeped that too. Yo, Brother Black, I peeped that. I think Sister Keisha be like, I don't want no parts of this.
I just drink water and mind my business.
I just make a comment and he just goes in like, no.
You know what? I agree with you, Sister Marcia, and I'm not saying, but what I'm saying, when we talk about right now, because what you were saying about back then, the money and what we had, but I'm talking about what we control right now because we see it daily. Like, how many of us really donated to Sukiana's school? And we didn't get nothing. So what's the difference between
you see how Sister Keisha dropped off again? Sister Keisha dropped off.
Yeah, she don't want to talk about Dr. Sukiana.
Brother Tad.
No problems. No problems.
Brother Tad, we are in full understanding that opportunities for our race to advance is here. The mindset of our people need to change. And it needs to change not only with the children, but with their parents. Because if their parents are engulfed in Sukiana and Sexy Red and everybody else, and even Beyonce, we all are in a situation.
Hold up, I'm from the Beehive now.
So am I. Listen, I'll be dancing. However, I understand my position and I play it well. I know when to be entertained and when to stay focused and work. Too many people don't understand that there's a time to play and there's a time to work. And in our community, we've been playing too many games and not working enough. So we are always on the same page of pushing our race forward. And again, this is the same North versus South problem that Du Bois, Washington, and I forgot how to pronounce his name, had in this conversation with Niagara Falls movement, because they couldn't sit there and figure out that, yes, stuff happened over here, stuff is happening, but how do we move the stuff that happened, the stuff that is happening, into prosperity for tomorrow? That's where we need to go.
And that's why, real quick, and that's why I brought up Dr. Sukiana, because you build it, they will come. That's it.
However, we've had 12 years, and I have pictures going back to 2009 of the idea being formulated. However, right now we need to realize that the idea that he has is fabulous. And we also know that there are brothers and sisters that have been creating this idea. We have Marcus Klein. We have
Brother Q Butter.
We have Imhotep and his wife with their program. There are so many programs. There's a program out in Houston. There's a program out in Florida. There's programs all over the place. Us focusing on Sukiana and her husband and their ability to get things done is our problem. We need to not talk about them anymore. We need to stay focused on the brothers and sisters that are on the ground doing some work. Yes, the masses. Yes, I agree, Brother Tad. The masses are out there. They are out there talking about him. And that's the distraction. That's the egotism, because they're feeding into that egotism as well. We need to feed into the brothers and sisters that are doing the work on the ground.
Yes. But this is my point. Sis, and I'm glad you said that. You know your brother too well, right? But the thing is, we need to redirect our folks to where the real work is being done, because it's the value system. That's why there's a Sexy Red and a Mrs. Sukiana. You know what I'm saying? Because money is being pumped into that. Our folks, we're not pumping money into what we say we want. And when we did, and not to beat up Dr. Sukiana, because he's not the only one. However, he's the only one who's collecting from the community and not building. But we have to redirect our energy and finances to those that are building. Here's the problem. Those that are building don't have the reach because they don't have the team that is quote unquote marketing them. That's why we know who a Sukiana and Sexy Red is.
We are the team.
This is why we know who Dr. Sukiana is. It's the marketing. We have
to be the team for those folks that are on the ground doing the work. We have to be the team. Because as long as we highlight Sukiana and all the great things that they're doing with their cleanup of the school for the 19th time and the paint job that they're going to do for the 7,000th time.
Get the block party this
culprits. We are culprits. We are culprits to the conversation as well. So all I'm suggesting is that we now give highlight to Marcus Klein and the great work that he's doing in his school, and how many students have graduated and are going into university settings, because he's had this program for the same amount of time as this other brother has been talking about building.
Not longer. Right.
Exactly.
It's not longer. But now here's the thing. And I agree with you 100%. There's always a little caveat to it. With him, quote unquote, doing the work, why isn't he popular then? Why isn't, because
anyone who does the work doesn't become popular because you're doing something that is against the system. As long as you are saying cha 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 cha, come out to my event, I'm King Kong, I'm this, I'm Big Papa, I'm all of that, then that's rhetoric. And the system understands rhetoric. We need to make we need to stop focusing. I'm sorry. Just let me finish. Let me finish. We need to stop focusing on the system and start focusing on the people. And yes, the people are within the system, but we can pull them out slowly with grace. That's all I think.
All right. Now, what system you talking about? Because he's not supported by the powers that be. He is drawing an African-centered audience. So what system? Are we talking about the African system, or are we talking about the European system?
We're talking about the Black Negroes that are out here that are highlighting him as all the people that has been with his latest antics that everybody is flashing on social media.
Ain't nothing wrong with BBWs. We love you, big girls. Don't change. Right?
Sister Keisha, I'm done for the night. I hope you have a great show, brothers and sisters.
I just want to say, Sister Marcia, because you know I love you, sis. And I'm not in disagreement. I'm just peeling back the layers. The thing is, and I guess this is a rhetorical question, not just for you, but also for our audience. How do we get those who are looking for this African-centered school? How do we get them to look? Like, don't worry about the empty promises over there. It's one right here. It's two, it's three, it's four, it's 10. Right here, there's some right within your community. How do we, and that's what I was talking about marketing, because now what happens is, what I realize, and Sister Keisha, tell me if I'm wrong, within this Black conscious movement, there's antiquated methods on how we operate. We still printing out little flyers and stuff like that instead of having fantastic presentations with all this technology we have. If we get a team that could just make some kind of theatrical presentations on TikTok, you'd be surprised at the following we could create. But that's not my field of expertise. And this is what I'm saying. We got to use weapons, because we still printing out little 8.5 by 11s. Come out to my meeting, when nobody even know how to read anymore.
I 100% concur with you. And this is where we need to invest in the young people that are doing these fabulous stuff. There are young people that we refuse to invest in. And I'll be damned, I kind of sort of agree with them, having conversation with them that, they want me to do things on volunteer or voluntold. Why can't I get at least $50? I'm kind of in agreement with them, because we in our community, especially when you're dealing with elders, they have this mindset of, oh, when I was doing this 75 years ago, we just did it. We just came together and did it. I'm just saying, when we did this 75 years ago, we just came together and did it. And then the brother is homeless. Oh, shoot, the brother lost his home? How he lost his home? Well, because he dedicated 9,000 hours to you for free, and you didn't figure out to give him $100 an hour. That's how he lost his home.
But you know what, too, Marcia, and I have to say this. Oftentimes people reject change, especially our elders reject change, especially the speed of light, the way technology is moving, just to get them to understand, yeah, you have to be more visual these days. Like, it's over. 80s, 90s, early 2000s is over. It's over. And that's why when you have, as Brother Taz says, an event, everybody is 60 and over. You know why? Because it's not appealing. And you can't seem to understand that. You can't get it. And you're very turned off from it. So, of course, they're going to be turned off. For example, when we were with UAM, I knew the reputation of Sucker Polite, Steady, Dr. Umar, whatever. I already knew it. My goal was to introduce younger generations to what the United African Movement was. So in order to attract that, you have to bring this. And it worked. So much so, it turned a lot of people off. And a lot of elders got afraid. You won't admit it, but they were afraid. You don't understand what it takes. But then having that behind you and they stop it, it also cripples your credibility with those generations. The next time you speak to Ashe, you ask him, I know what I'm talking about. Mrs. Maddox understood that. She said, run with it. Run with it. Because now you got to introduce to another generation and generations yet unborn. But again, people are very fearful of change. We have coming down to the end of our program. We didn't even get to William Monroe Trotter. So next week, we will have a part 2 on the Niagara Movement. You see how when you start to unpack the layers, when you start to pull back the layers of this Niagara Movement and connect the dots with what it is that you're seeing today, it opens up a plethora of information, a plethora of questions. So again, next week we're going to have a part 3. We got to deal with the rest of the Niagara Movement because it's very, very imperative that you understand what is being done today was done before. However, back then they didn't have what we have now. Back then the war wasn't amped up the way that it is now. Because now not only you fighting a Urugu, you fighting his cousin, the Asian, you fighting his cousin, the next group. Now you got to add those 2 and those 3 together with AI. So this is what we're fighting now. And you still got elders who say, I can't do this. You're the goddamn problem. And I have to say that. You're the goddamn problem. And you don't see it. Get out of the goddamn way. Move. For example, true story. And Brother Tad can tell you if I'm lying. Straight Black Pride, New York. There was an issue as it relates to the chairperson entering another country. Banned from another country. The chairperson wanted legal representation in the form of all the other chapters in support of him going abroad. Now, I could have wrote a letter myself because I understand legalese. I didn't do that. I passed it to Sister Ivy Jane here. And when I show you her letter, you would think an Esquire was behind her name. Well, let her take the leadership here. You understand what I'm saying? Today, a lot of us got the business because people wouldn't get out the way. And now we're trying to gather what's behind us and trying to fight what's ahead of us. And that's problematic. So I can't wait till next week when we get into William Monroe Trotter. I know the history hitman can't wait for that because he loved him. But Brother Black, your final thoughts and commentary.
Oh man, what an interesting show. Great information. I appreciate all the education I received today. Wow, so much happening. Y'all know I be sending information about the cosmic stuff too. So if you feeling kind of different or a little off lately, I would suggest you look into what's called the ascension symptoms. And there you can find that easily on Google and you'll see what it means. And it may explain why you're feeling kind of off or kind of sensitive lately and so on. Just same old, we continue. A lot going on behind the scenes. And it's going to play out. So we're going to see each other next week on the bridge. I'm not going to take too long. Peace and love to the panel. Peace and love to those out there. Peace and love to the world. One love.
Sister Marcia, your final thoughts and commentary.
Brothers and sisters, this has been a fabulous program. I know everyone loves the antics between Brother Tad and ourselves, but we are building our knowledge. This is what we do when you build. You go through certain exercises and mental fortitude in order to create the vision that we want to see for our future. And I think and I hope that that's what you saw between the brother and I. And just to let you know, African on the Rise has its program March 2nd. Sister Keisha will share the flyer when she can. But I hope to see you all out there. It is very youth focused. And even me, myself, needs to incorporate some of the conversations that Brother Tad was having. How do we make a flyer, a presentation so dynamic that other people are like, oh yeah, that program is coming on. We gotta go see it. So again, I want y'all all to continue to study, do everything that you have to do to get you right, your family right. As Brother Blacksmith said, ascension is coming, but you cannot ascend without studying. Don't think that you're just going to be floating up in the air and you didn't do no work. We got to put in work in order to get to the places that we want to go to and make time flourish for us all, and may time flourish for us all. Brother Tad?
Yeah. I just want to thank Mr. Marcia for that back and forth. Still sharp and still. It's always good, but we always got to peel back the layers like onions. I want to thank the audience for tuning in. It's always a pleasure to have everybody join in. Hopefully somebody was inspired by something they heard tonight, and now it's your turn to go out and inspire others. So I want y'all to stay up, stay blessed, stay true, and remember, no matter how hard things may seem right now, there's always better days ahead. Sister Keisha.
Hey, Sister Keisha, keep Tad out of Atlanta.
I'm going to drink water and mind my business.
I'm going to throw my bag at Blacksmith next. Send the big girls at him.
We don't want Tad to get swallowed in the ATL.
Oh.
We don't want some kind of shenanigans in the ATL. And then I'm going to have to come down there and I'm tearing everybody behind up. Everybody getting it. But again, family, you got to remember as you go about life, everything that your ancestors had to go through. Remember that there was a whole campaign just to distort the misinformation that was put out about us from the end of the 1800s through the early 1920s. In fact, here's a picture of my great-great-grandparents living up to that very thing. You see them dressing very regal, like you didn't come out with no bonnet and your pants hanging down. You understand what I'm saying? Clean yourselves up. Lift yourselves up. Always be the best that you can be. Remember that people came before you so that you can do the things that you want to do today. Thank you all for joining us each and every week. You will see the program with Sister Marcia and the Black United Fund posted on the Thorough Black Talk Facebook page. Are Black people dysfunctional, or are we just broken and numb? Is the topic. I can't wait to see it. You guys can watch it via Zoom. As soon as we are off tonight, it will be posted there. Again, the book on Booker T. Washington that we mentioned earlier. The title is Booker T. Washington in Africa, The Making of a Pan-Africanist by Dr. Tyreen Wright. Also, the interview with Tucker Carlson and Vladimir Putin is also on our Thorough Black Talk page. See you guys next week. Stay black, stay black, stay black. And remember, you are above the Yorugu, not the other way around. We out, y'all. Good night.